2025. It's been a year for WWE, hasn't it? But the story coming out of 2025 when it comes to this company, it's the heel turn, isn't it? The John Cena heel turn and the lessons that must be learned from that heel turn, because what should have been one of the most exciting, compelling developments maybe of the last 10 years, what was it? It became a waste of time. It was limp. It was lazy. And the key thing for me, the prevailing thought that I have coming out of it now, because we are near enough, well, we're past the heel turn, but we're nearly at the end of the retirement tour at time of recording, is this entire thing could have still been amazing had there just been an actual plan. And it feels like the angle itself was done to shock and really well crafted in its own right. But from that moment on, they were perhaps relying on people that aren't that reliable. Looking at you, Travis Scott. Looking at you, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, to be key factors of the Cena character, let's say, for those months leading up to WrestleMania, maybe the months after it. But that didn't prove to be the case. They weren't there, and it was left to Cena and Cody to really carry that whole feud, the whole angle, whatever it was, in the weeks that followed. And they couldn't. They suffered. It was clear that there wasn't really a direction. It was just, here, we're going to do a shocking thing that you've always wanted, and then we're just going to kind of make it up as we go along from there on out. And, well, the proof was in the pudding. The results were not great. We had that terrible WrestleMania match. We had the R-Truth stuff. The Randy Orton stuff was okay. But throughout all of this, it was clear that Cena wasn't really that motivated by it all, really, or at least he didn't have very clear motivations for what he was doing. He didn't believe in that character. You could tell it was just an exercise in, can I be a heel? And that's what it felt like. It felt like an exercise. It didn't feel like a person who was fully believing in the material that they were being given. And it just created this really dull product at times to watch whenever Cena was on screen, which is a bit shocking. If you would have said a couple of years ago, we're finally going to get heel Cena, and it was just there. It was just bland. It was very... It felt impulsive. It felt like week to week they were just making stuff up and seeing what stuck. And for what is his last ever year in wrestling, in WWE, it feels like a bit of a waste of time, really. I think the lesson going forward, the key thing that we're taking away from all this, is that when it comes to these retirement tours or just the handling of these big moments going forward, it can't just be for the moment. And there was a couple of years there when Triple H took over where it seemed like you'd have these things, these catalysts for change, huge change in WWE creatively, and then there'd be a plan further down the line. This is going to happen, that's one event, and then a couple of months down the line we're leading to this, and we can improvise a little bit in between, but we need to hit these key events. It feels like that's been lost a little bit, specifically with this big story, this big John Cena story. So I think going forward, with the likes of AJ Styles, with the likes of maybe people like Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho if he ends up back in WWE, or just any of these big stories, these big moments, like the Bron Breakker thing right now that's just happened. Like that's a big event, but there has to be something now down the line where it's like, right, we're going to crown Bron Breakker as World Heavyweight Champion at some point. That's where we get into. That is the long game. We can kind of make our way up as we go along, but we need that plan to be in place. We can't just do things and go, we'll make it up as we go from here on out, because we've proven here that just does not work. People get bored. People get frustrated by it. Like, if you're not interested, we're not interested. That was the key feeling, and it was a shame. It felt like we were very much back in the Vince McMahon era of WWE, where stuff just happened, and it was like, and you forgot week to week, and the continuity wasn't really there. And we're more intelligent, we're more cultured as a fan base nowadays, and we just won't take that. Really, we'll just reject it. We'll hijack the show, all that kind of stuff. So, a big lesson that must be learned. We thought it had been learned already, but it needs to be relearned. Coming into 2026, have a plan, stick to the plan, and deliver after the big moments. Don't just do a big moment for the sake of social media and then not do anything else after it, because I don't know, we don't like this stuff. I don't like this stuff in particular, and it upset me. So learn the lesson, WWE.
I think everyone universally wants WWE to have its redemption in 2026 when it returns to Las Vegas for WrestleMania. Everyone thinks that, right? And I think the part of that is you have to learn from this year that the build to WrestleMania is crucial, arguably to shape your whole year. This ill will towards WWE is kind of centered about how people felt about what happened at WrestleMania. Now, this isn't me saying that Charlotte Flair or Jey Uso shouldn't win the Rumbles or anything like that. I've got no issue with that. Having said that, Sami Zayn should win the Rumble and CM Punk should win the Chamber. But we're not talking about that right now. What I'm talking about is having an idea from January or from the moment that you decide so-and-so is going to be fighting for, whether it be a title match or a grudge feud or whatever, and plotting that out to WrestleMania. So many of these things felt like something happened and then they went, and then it's WrestleMania. And people go like, right, we've got 6 weeks of telly, what are we gonna do in the interim? Like, don't get me wrong, some things kind of came off all right on the night. A lot of people told me triple threats were bad, and yet across WrestleMania weekend we had 3 of the best triple threats of the year. But we're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is what on earth they were doing with that whole Io, Rhea, Bianca story, because it was a sensational women's match on the night, but even beforehand, even I could book it better. All you needed to do was have Io say, sod it, I'm hardcore, I'll take both of you, right? But she was sort of literally pushed to the side, and then they just went, triple threat or whatever. The triple threat with Punk getting his WrestleMania main event was just kind of, yeah, he's got it. Yeah. Like, there was no real story or struggle aside from just Paul Heyman, being a Punk guy all of a sudden. And I think, we all enjoyed what happened with Charlotte and Tiffany, but maybe if you're gonna have that match, think, how are we gonna plot it out, and what are they going to say to each other on the road to WrestleMania? Look, I think next year's WrestleMania is huge because it's the last WrestleMania in the US for a while, and I think with them returning to Las Vegas, thanks guys, it is a chance for a bit of redemption, but they have to get it right from the get-go. I'd say from, maybe not start of January, but the bare minimum, from the Royal Rumble onwards, know what you're going to do.
So if I was going to give one lesson to WWE from the 2025 list of booking mistakes, like I know, not every match needs to end in a distraction or have interference or there be some kind of confusion. It is a technique we can use. There's nothing wrong with wrestling tropes. You can lean into wrestling tropes. But there was a period sort of July, August, September, June-ish time. Every single match, somebody came out. Every main event, we just had the same tag team main event for like 72 years. Just distraction. And it would have been fine if we'd reserved it for the Vision, who were trying to get themselves over as heels. But baby faces were doing it, and they do it on SmackDown, they do it down in NXT. If you watch everything like I do, because I'm a geek, it just was so frustrating. It'd be like watching a television show, and every single thing ends with the same guy dying. Not even a different character dying. So Bill gets shot, episode 1. Bill gets shot, episode 2. Bill gets shot, episode 3. Like, how do they keep coming back to life? Why aren't peripheral characters doing anything about this? And what the flub is up with Bill, man? How does he manage to keep coming back onto this earth? So it's not the end of the world, because I think we expect it. And towards the end of the year, WW is far more balanced with it. But it's like anything. If I give you a hug on a Monday and I don't give you another hug until a Friday, you're going to appreciate way more if I'm just hugging you all the time. Like, all right, I get it, man. There's enough with the hug. So less distractions. I guess let's be more creative with finishes. We did see some great ones. Ironically, a lot in the women's tag team division. It doesn't sort of get featured enough either. But sometimes people can lose as well. Maybe that's something else I would say. Losing isn't a death knell. Losing doesn't mean you're buried. Give somebody a promo. Give somebody a story. I don't think people should have losing streaks unless it's really going to work, but somebody can come out and say, I'm sad, I lost, what do I do? I'm completely, directionless now. That's a story. And if it gets people to connect with that person, they can be sympathetic or maybe even empathetic towards them, then it's going to work, and it doesn't matter. Now, of course, if you're trying to build someone, they have to win, because it still does have a sports-like presentation. But not everyone needs to come out and say, oh, well, I got dicked over. Because if everyone gets dicked over, nobody gets dicked over, and we don't need people getting dicked over. I don't even know what I'm saying now, but yes, if we could do less of that in 2026, this ball guy would really appreciate it. At the same time, I understand you don't have to book things for me, because I'm not insane.
I think they need to realise that storylines should drive Unreal and not the other way around. I'm somebody that likes the existence of WWE Unreal and shows like it. The 24 specials that used to air on the network, the 365 profile pieces on Superstars, where it's as much about what's happening in the background of a scene as what you're watching in the foreground. But nonetheless, I think we're in this post-kayfabe era where those two things are fine to comfortably coexist. But the unrealification of the on-screen product to the point where, as you were watching season 1, you could see decisions being taken on air that were there to drive season 2, made it even more difficult to drop in to the fiction. I'm somebody that wants, isn't that right, Fedheads? To drop in to WWE in this era, I would happily surrender to the fiction if it's entertaining, if it's fun. And yet, with the examples such as the Seth Rollins worked injury, as we were watching it, it felt like it was a plot for Unreal Season 2. The kind of infamous now Becky Lynch video backstage where she was kind of laughing at the camera, and you could see them all doing the high fives and stuff. A version of that scene is going to make its way into Season 2 of Unreal, and it's like changed my brain chemistry for the second half of 2025. It's made me look at things that are happening on air and wonder just how Triple H is going to call himself a genius on Netflix Unreal Season 2. This sort of stuff, as we head into 2026, could have like legitimate ramifications into the build to WrestleMania. You know, they have, you know, turned John Cena heel based on some fairly reliable reporting that The Rock wanted Cody Rhodes and didn't get his way. So John Cena, the ever the good soldier, became the compromise, and that's one of the many reasons why the follow-up was terrible. And then you would think, based on Unreal, that it was some Ocean's 11 heist moment to get Big Match John to go bad. Like, no, just because The Rock didn't get his way, but they can't say that on Real. It's got to be framed in another way. And it just feels as though, like, because especially now, if like WWE want to keep Netflix as sweet as possible, and based on some numbers we read, there's very good motivation to do that, they will market and promote Unreal as like where the real action goes down. No, there are 52 Raws a year where the real action needs to go down, and then tell that on Unreal. I hated this idea that at some point across the year, like Sidgwick will talk on this very video about WWE arrogance, and I think that bled through Unreal as well. Every single talking head, like at no point said, you know what, we didn't quite nail that storyline. It was like, no, that was genius, that was brilliant. You know, you had the dual double act of Michael Hayes and God working on the finish to the WrestleMania Night 1 triple threat. Everybody just did a brilliant bang up job and nothing went wrong. Travis Scott was like congratulated backstage. Nothing we're seeing on Unreal is actually real. So for God's sake, at least don't like have it infect the product as well. I love it. I want the show to exist, but I would rather it follow the storylines rather than the storylines follow it.
You're gonna price people out with these price hikes, man. These ticket hikes. You're gonna run your core audience off. You're gonna run families off. You're gonna run people who build their entire year around their WrestleMania vacations. You're gonna price people out who house shows come into town. I'd love to take my whole family. Cool, it's £700. You're gonna run off your core wrestling audience, and you're gonna be left with a bunch of people who do not give a damn about anything you're doing creatively. Now, I caveat this a little bit, right? Because so far we have seen no decrease in demand from these WWE ticket hikes, right? People go online and complain about them, and then they still buy them anyway. And then it comes to the show, and Triple H or Stephanie McMahon comes out and goes, we have sold 20 million ticket sales for this event. And people sit there and go, yeah, thanks for ripping me off, TKO. This is awesome. I paid £5,000 to sit on the roof. But you're going to get to a breaking point eventually, right? You are going to get to a point where people say, no, that's enough. Because tickets for a WWE show are now a luxury item. This is a problem that we have seen in concerts as well, and like, you know, Taylor Swift, $400, whatever, but nowhere near to this extreme. And it has more than doubled. We ran this story on the news just a few weeks ago, thanks to some good work from Brandon First, and ticket prices in WWE have more than doubled since TKO took over. It's only going to keep getting worse, but they're going to hit a breaking point at some point. They're going to reach a thing where there's no more money to squeeze out of these poor people. And I say poor as in sympathetic, not having no money, although if you go to lots of WWE shows, you will also have no money. It's a real shame that that's how this has panned out, but it's how WWE has presented itself since TKO took over. It has become even more corporatized than it was before. The company is now run by absolute sharks, people who see a big green number and nothing else. They don't care about coming to your town and pleasing the fans. Maybe the wrestlers do, but the guy who's got his big spreadsheet at the end of the year where he releases all your favorite wrestlers because, they were earning $5,000 too much, even though John from Ohio just spent $5,000 to sit in a bin. They don't care, ultimately, at the end of this. The only way they will care is when ticket sales start dwindling and the number starts going down, and I think 2026 might be the year that bubble finally bursts.
Don't get cocky. Like, do not get cocky. That has been the theme of this year, and the tone for this year was set on January 5th. Was that the Netflix, or January 6th?
6th, yeah.
January 6th, 2025, the Raw and Netflix debut was the most kind of revolting, off-putting, tell, don't show how big we are event. It was a masturbatory, awful nightmare in terms of this company. Like, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and for the apparent auteurs over at WWE, they did effectively a curtain call thanking everyone for coming and how great was the show at the beginning. They got it in the complete wrong order, and that set the tone for what I think has been the definitive theme trend of the year, in which they just seem to get high off their own supply, putting themselves over, and just making harebrained decisions that seem based on the idea of like, oh, we're really working the fans with this, or we're really telling bold, shocking, great stories because we are on fire and red hot, without any real plan to execute it properly. The John Cena heel turn just felt like something to do to shock people and into thinking that they are this bold storytelling machine. Well, the wires have fallen out because the follow-up was putrid. The R-Truth fiasco, where he was the central story, the headline, coming out of Money in the Bank, and within 2 months he was putting his phone in a toaster. How's that funny? I don't understand. In addition to that, you have the Seth Rollins knee injury, where like literally John Pollock within minutes said, oh yeah, it's a work, or at the very least it's embellished, it's a storyline, and then they were all giddy backstage thinking they'd worked people, and everyone sniffed it out pretty damn quickly. Hamflet was one of the first to like really suspect and doubt this thing ain't legitimate at all. And just generally this smug, off-putting, it's what we do tone. It's when you present yourself as this absolutely incredible manipulative storytelling machine and then produce slop. And I think I'd lean sensibility-wise in the direction of other promotions and styles and what have you. But I think the core audience has been absolutely thrilled by WWE's 2025 output. Neither. Just get your head down. Stay humble, because you're being arrogant and it's awful. And you're failing creatively. And, a little bit of joy to derive from that, because, people want to see people get knocked off their perch. It's a classic sporting story, right? You don't want to see dynasties succeed forever and be really arrogant with it. Like massive sporting moments have been premised on that exact idea. And Triple H and Nick Khan are sat on that perch right now, enjoying themselves way too much, and they're not backing it up neither. So just get your head down and stay humble, Stay humble.